Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain things in chess that seem impossible to do. And yet, today, Jan-Krzysztof Duda did what seemed yesterday impossible. Yesterday, Magnus Carlsen had a great day. He got through to the grand final, uh, not in undefeated fashion, not in amazing fashion, but he got the results he needed. He progressed through four different players: Vincent Keimer, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, Denis Lazovic, and Shan Sagarsian in consecutive rounds. Jan-Krzysztof Duda lost in the penultimate round. He then defeated Denis Lazovic, both of whom have now qualified for the Esports World Cup. But in order to win the Chess.com Open, Jan-Krzysztof Duda must defeat Magnus Carlsen twice. He must defeat him in one matchup of 4 games in the grand final to force a grand final reset, because this is a double elimination. He must then, in that reset, defeat Magnus Carlsen again, head to head. And he nearly achieved the impossible. Let's have a look at how it went. Magnus Carlsen. This is game 2 of their grand final. The first game ended in a draw. Jan-Krzysztof Duda has the white pieces. e4, c5. Magnus plays a Sicilian. Knight to f3, knight to c6, a bishop to c4. This is a very trendy line. Occasionally, just to get black out of theory, we get e6 short castles, bishop d6, rook to e1, knight g e7. A very odd setup here from black, but nothing too heinous just yet, except Jan-Krzysztof Duda, after a minute or so, plays the move b4, fully sacrificing this pawn. The idea, though, is to play in the style of the Evans Gambit, where if pawn takes, you get d4, and if knight takes, you get c3 and d4. So, Magnus takes with the knight, and so we get d4. Not even c3 first. Black plays short castles, Magnus plays short castles. Now we get bishop to b2, and we just get b5 from Magnus, counterattacking. The bishop takes, counter gambit, but now there's rook to b8, and now you have to play knight to a3, and Magnus's position is already very delicate. The pawn sacrifice of b4 worked a treat. We get knight to g6, rook to b1, knight takes a2, but now look at this d5. You take this pawn on the other side of the board, I strike in the center. The bishop is kind of tied together, and for the moment that rook is hanging, and there's knight, potentially forking pieces. It's not an easy position, and Magnus is up a pawn, but he's going to have to suffer for that pawn advantage. He plays c4. c4, not the most accurate move. Now we get queen d4. Already here, Jan-Krzysztof Duda has a decisive advantage if he just takes the pawn. Bishop takes c4. And he has a decisive advantage because, yes, there is bishop takes a3, but you just play bishop takes h3, and now knight c3. Looks like it holds for black, but now you play rook takes b8. You sacrifice the queen because of bishop takes f8. Knight takes f8. Rook takes d1. This position is winning for white. Hard to find that sequence of moves in a classical game. He plays queen d4. Gets out the way of a lot of stuff. Now Magnus can achieve c3, and now he's leveling the position because takes, knight takes, and now we capture in the center, and now everything is hanging on a knife's edge. And bishop b7 is a mistake from Magnus. He lets Jan-Krzysztof back in. Knight c4, queen goes to c7. Queen d4 looks logical because you're stepping out of the pin and you would like to grab the bishop, but now we get a bishop to c5. The bishop is over here. Knight is coming in. This is not an easy position. Jan-Krzysztof Duda must be accurate. He plays d6. Counterattack. You take my queen, I take your queen, and threaten your rook, giving me time to recapture the bishop. So you can't go down that line. So queen c8 is now forced. And here, queen g4. Jan-Krzysztof not playing accurately, and it gives Magnus the chance to play f5. The perfect move. Queen g3, and now Magnus Carlsen would be winning if he plays the move bishop d5. Opening up the rook, putting pressure on the knight, and centralizing the bishop, and maybe you would like to play bishop to e6 or rock back at some point. Instead, he plays a6. Now the bishop goes to a4. Now you play bishop d5, but it's too late. Knight ce5 is not better. The best move for Jan-Krzysztof Duda at this point is to play knight fe5. Knight fe5. You obviously defend this, and now your knights are very strong, putting pressure on all the relevant pieces. Not easy to find. We get rook takes. Obviously, Jan-Krzysztof misses it. He puts the wrong knight. And now rook takes. Magnus misses it. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5. Now bishop to e6, defends the pawn. And now rook to d1. No decisive blunders just of yet. Queen b7, h4, f4, targeting the queen. Queen slides over to c3, rook c8. Now a couple of misses as the players now enter time pressure, both under a minute. Jan-Krzysztof Duda down to 38 seconds. Magnus just over a minute. And here Magnus blunders. Simple tactic. Knight takes e6. Takes, queen sacrifice. We get to here and check. And Jan-Krzysztof Duda just wins a bishop. And he's going to win with a bishop. Magnus Carlsen plays to try and flag, but it's irrelevant. Jan-Krzysztof Duda has defeated Magnus Carlsen once. But it's only 1.5 to half. He still has to defeat Magnus Carlsen again. Magnus plays e3. Very next game. If Jan-Krzysztof Duda wins this, he forces the grand final reset. And they get into this. A version of the English opening, the 2 knights. Which is very interesting. We get d5, c takes, knight takes. And now queen c2. Knight takes c3, queen takes c3. You might think taking with one of the pawns is better, but no, queen takes c3 is fine. Bishop to d6. Now b4. Short castles, bishop here. Wouldn't it be lovely if Jan-Krzysztof Duda just pushed the pawn and you mated him? Wouldn't that be lovely? Rook here, and now knight to f3, putting pressure. a6. Also, you might be wondering why not f5 or f4. f4 looks like it's a great move. But the problem is there's bishop f8, which is just a cold shower. And now you've got nothing, and you've kind of weakened your king position a little bit. You have to play moves like knight e2, and now there's like just a6, and black is just comfortably better. So f4 not quite the idea, so that's why knight comes out. And we get bishop to d3, bishop d7, short castles, queen f6. Now bishop e4, rook e7, now you play d3, but rook d8. Black's got a very resilient position. Jan-Krzysztof Duda is down on time, but it's not mattering at the moment. h6. What does Magnus do? Like, Magnus is the master of just making moves and stewing you, but what is his plan here? How do you break down the black? Because Duda is happy with the draw. One win is enough. He's happy to make 2 draws. Magnus has to now fight for something. And so what does Magnus do? He trades knight for bishop, and now he plays a4. Again, the sacrifice of b4. But what do you get when I take the pawn? Oh, you get the bishop here. You're going to try and target this weakness. Okay. What about a5? Oh, you take. Oh, and now you're going to swing the rook. Ah, makes sense. What about b5? Because rook takes, pawn takes. And now you play rook c1. Jan-Krzysztof Duda here is winning with f4. Like, you've complicated things on the queen side. I just have a path pawn. And I've got a king side attack. So, Magnus, what are you doing? e4 is played, which is wrong, because takes, and now a rook takes e4. Rook takes e4, bishop takes, and the more pieces get liquidated, Duda's probably happy because he still maintains kingside threat, and he does have a pawn on a4, which is 3 squares away from queening. So Magnus has to find something. We get bishop takes h3, queen drops back to d1, mate is defended, queen e5, queen takes a4, bishop g4, queen b4, we've liquidated the queenside pawn. This is probably going to be a draw. d5 is a miss. The best move here is queen b4. Rook is under pressure. Bishop is under pressure. And you're lost. There's no way to defend everything. You can play queen f6, trying to get in. But I can just play queen takes g4. I'm not afraid of this. I can just go to h2. And you've got nothing. So Duda drops a piece. Magnus, 2 minutes, 19 seconds. Doesn't find it. Plays bishop f1. Doesn't find a fork. And that's just how it goes when you're not playing your best form. Duda sacrifices the bishop to get in. And he's got at least a perpetual. Magnus hangs on with rook e1, but h5. And bishop g2, rook g3. King h1, fantastic move, but queen g5. And queen f2 loses. It's unbelievable, but queen f2 loses. How? Because Jan-Krzysztof Duda sacrifices the rook! Rook takes g2! And you might say, what's the point? Queen takes g2. Queen h4 check. The king can't move. You're losing the rook. It's a fork. You get the rook back, and you get the bishop. Check. Check. And it's hopeless. and Magnus Carlsen resigns. Jan-Krzysztof Duda forces a grand final reset. But ladies and gentlemen, this is where his luck ran out. This is the first game of the grand final reset. Magnus Carlsen has the white pieces. He begins with knight to f3. We get knight to f6, and he goes for the English again. We get a more symmetrical system. Obviously, Duda doesn't have a 1-point lead, so he's not going to play for a draw. He's still going to play fairly solid stuff, so we get more of a mainline English. But now bishop d3, not a common move. Now takes. Bishop e7. For those of you wondering why you can't win this pawn, just by the way, for those of you wondering why this isn't the clean winning of a pawn, bishop b5, check, and you lose the queen. So, yeah, you got to be careful. That is a common trap. So that is not possible. We get short castles, and now b5, bishop g5, bishop b7, rook to e1, short castles, bishop c2, and b4. And here Magnus Carlsen uncorks queen d3 brilliancy, because my knight's hanging. Magnus didn't forget. This looks like mate, but the knight defends. So if you take my knight, I take your knight, and I threaten mate. You have to go g6, at which point I play bishop takes e7. And now it doesn't really matter too much. I think knight takes e7 is the most accurate. And now I play b takes c3, and Magnus Carlsen is a pawn up. A point of material up. So queen e3 is a beautiful move. g6 is played, now stopping mate. But now I just play knight a4. ba3, knight d5. I don't have to trade bishops with you. I attack your rook. Your rook slides over. Great, now my knight's coming. And Magnus Carlsen just has a very comfortable position. Very, very comfortable. Queen c3, queen c7 rather, rook a c1. The white position plays itself. As opposed to a few games ago where I was asking you what Magnus Carlsen does, this white position is very comfortable to play. Rook a c8, black is under pressure. Now bishop a4. Look at this. Every piece in in Jan-Krzysztof Duda's position is not comfortable at all. It doesn't look it, but there are tactics about rook e8. Now I can play h4, and you play knight b6. It looks a very simple move. You simply target the bishop, but you lose. Magnus Carlsen misses the win. The win here is knight takes e6. Knight takes e6. An unbelievable move, because f takes e6, rook e6. Again, you're like, what's the point? I take the bishop. You can't take the bishop. Rook takes g6 is mate in 4. Unbelievable. So he misses a knight sacrifice. He just brings the bishop out. Bishop b3. But, setting up more dangerous threats for the king. And Duda's just not aware. He plays knight d5. And now h5. Knocking on the door. Bishop takes c5. Removing the knight from sacrificing. I play rook takes. Oh. Queen d6. Bishop takes d5. Pawn takes. Queen e3. f6. Rook b1. Bishop a8. Rook comes into b6. Again, your position is untenable. This position for black is so uncomfortable. You're playing with your shoes tied together. Rook b8 looks like it's fine. Bishop f4 just wins on the spot. Skewer. So Magnus Carlsen takes a 1-point lead. It's only a 2-game match. Jan-Krzysztof Duda must win this game. So we get e4 from him. e5 now. Not a Sicilian from Magnus. He's happy with a draw. We get an Italian from Duda. We get bishop c5. Now, if you're playing for a win here, you probably play Evans Gambit, but he goes to traditional stuff. He plays d3, which is a trendy way to play the Italian now, because there are 2 moves that exist in this position, and that is c3, short castles, or d3. So 3 moves that exist. He chooses d3, knight to f6, and now bishop to g5. This is the most aggressive way white can probably play in the Italian. h6, bishop h4. And what you want to do is you want to get black to commit to g5, to open up the position. But black is slightly better. We get bishop e7 though, very passive from Magnus, not the main move. Now bishop g3, d6, a4, a5, and now c3. We get short castles, knight d2, g6, h3, knight to h7. Knight to h7 doesn't look like it makes sense. It honestly doesn't. However, you might want to put the knight here. And then if takes, you just activate your bishop. And it's a preventative measure against like h4, h5. So here, do the castles. We get king g7. And now d4. Breaks in the center. Makes sense. There's no knight now putting pressure on here. So you've got a free hand in the center. You take it. But bishop f6. Now I'm putting pressure taking this way. What are you going to do? If you block off the center, all your attacking chances are 0. So what do? We get queen c2. But now, knight g5, rook a1. I don't mind you taking me because I will just replace it with my other knight. It's really not a problem. You probably help me. So now queen e7. King to h1. Getting off, I don't know what. Maybe you want to commit f4. Maybe you just don't want this to be check for some reason. Bishop d7. Rook fe1. What is white's plan? Like, you're white. You win this position. You have to win this position. What is your plan for winning this position? What do you play? Because you want to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. You want to keep it. You want to make progress, but not so much progress that you head towards a draw. You want to keep attacking options open. What do you play? Like, rook 88. What do you do as white? How do you improve any piece without trades? Because, like, the black position is so solid. Because you take here, I take. Or I take. And then what? You put the other knight here? I might play then, like, g4. Like, how do you break through the black position? Like, the engine is giving bishop f1 as a suggestion. So what do you play? Duda decides to play knight to h2. And we get e takes d4. Now a trade in the center. Duda ignores it. He plays f4. The only move for white. He finds this idea. Knight to e6. And now he plays knight to g4. Very similar idea to what Magnus had. He's going to secure the bishop. We get d takes c3, attacking the knight. We get pawn takes. Now I've given up a pawn, and bishop h4. Look at that. You get f4, knight c5 gets out the way. We get bishop takes h4, which is wrong. Duda here has not an insignificant advantage if he plays knight to f3, which looks wrong because it looks like you just give up this bishop. But crazily enough, you can, because there's queen d2. And you have problems against your king. Namely, like, I don't know why isn't that a fork? Instead of queen d2? Why isn't this just a fork? Because it's just queen takes f6 and then knight takes f6? King takes f6? Apparently you can just sack your queen. As black. Okay. So we get bishop takes h4, which is unnecessary. Queen takes h4. Now knight to f3, but the queen goes back to h5. f6 check. King slides over to h7. Not the best move, but good enough. Rook d5 now hits the queen. g5. It looks like white has something. e5. King h8. Magnus makes a mistake. Duda has to strike now. He has to play one of two moves to have edge. And they're really not easy to find. It's king g1. King g1. Because the knight, there's some tactics against the knight because of the pin. Or knight f2 because of the tactics. He plays knight fh2 to defend the knight. Doesn't work. Bishop e6. Your rook is hit. We sacrifice the rook. Rook takes c5. But I just take it. And then yes, you can take this. And it looks like white is so close. You got nothing. Queen b3. You need Magnus to make a mistake. And he does. Plays rook de8. Takes. Knight drops back. And all of a sudden, Duda has picked up 2 pawns. Magnus is still up a point of material. But it's not easy. It's not easy because we have the imbalance of knight for rook. But there's some, pawn play here. Knight to f7. I take another pawn. All of a sudden, Duda has a passed a pawn. And he's probably going to win this at some point. And he might have 2 passed pawns. Not to mention, the E and F pawns are very, very strong. And the knight is still causing massive amounts of problems. So queen g6, Magnus Carlsen must defend. Queen takes c5. It looks wrong. But it's wrong taking a free pawn. Now you've got to defend your passed pawns. He doesn't. He's fully giving this up. You can't take it, though. You can't take this. Because, why? Knight to f3? And then what? Let's say it wants rook g8. Why? Because knight c5. And now you're targeting stuff. Okay. Anyway, we get instead g4, which is the best move by Magnus Carlsen. Practical defense, takes. And now a5. Looks like you're doing a run-up. Rook a8 defense. Queen e2 hits the rook. But I take the pawn. Knight takes c5. Defends the rook. Gets targeted. I just defend. And knight b7 loses. Magnus misses the win. He gives the rook back. And now we have this position. Every time a piece is traded, the winning chances are minimized. The black king is still not safe because of this pawn, but this pawn can quickly be rounded up, and the white position is not very safe. So queen f2, g3, and we're out here. Sacrifice the knight, but I get the rook, so, I would be perfectly happy. I threaten mate, but check. 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 I force the queens off the board, and now I get my knight out the way, looking to pick up the pawn. You target my rook, I take on e6. Rook a1, king g1. You target my pawn, I come back, I target the knight, I target the pawn, I take. It's check, and this position is a draw. And so Magnus Carlsen will, hold it surely to a draw, or he will win it. Duda, surely his winning chances are 0. He's got no pawns. Check, and here, I think Duda flagged king e1. He really had Magnus on the ropes, but ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, as we predicted yesterday, we predicted a couple days ago, Magnus Carlsen wins the Chess.com Open. It did take until a grand final reset. Duda came so close. He had great positions in the last 2 games. Wasn't able to make them count. I mean, maybe not the first game, but certainly this game, he had chances. He missed them. Magnus makes him pay. I think Duda flags in the end. Absolutely incredible for Magnus Carlsen. Jan-Krzysztof Duda qualifies for the Esports World Cup, as does Denis Lazovic, through their positions obtained in this tournament. Duda coming second, Lazovic coming third. Incredible performance from Magnus Carlsen. But yeah, that is all to say, ladies and gentlemen. The Chess.com Open is over, and we now know a few more players that will be at the Esports World Cup. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Duda was so close to the impossible, but Magnus prevails as ever.